Hey guys, welcome to the Save Continue podcast, where every week we get together and talk about video games and video game related stuff. You guys okay? Y'all all right over
I'm,
there?
I'm good.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah. Peachy.
Yeah, well, I'm Shanae Howard. Those lovely voices that you're hearing are Thomas Shelby and Ryan Robinson.
Hey, you pronounced my name right this week. Hi,
Right
Yeah.
on.
guys.
Um, so what's got y'all so giggly?
I just did a thing where right after I pressed the record button. I just stared directly into the camera, and it was funny to me.
What have y'all been playing?
Not much this week, actually. Still playing some King of Fighters.
Nice.
I did play this game called Expendable for the Dreamcast.
I know that game.
Did you
It's
play it with that
really cool.
that other Dreamcast controller?
Yeah, it's like kind of like Cannon Spike, except like Cannon Spike is arena based, and this has like actual levels. It's pretty neat.
Um, what
It's
is
like top
Cannon
like top
Spike?
down shooter.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I know
So
that
that
game.
was fun.
What else?
That's it, really. Like, I don't know. I've been playing like a few minutes of this or that, but I haven't really played too many games this week.
How about you, Ryan?
Um, so still playing The Last of Us Part Two. Um, I had a really
How many
funny.
times?
Well, I had a really funny moment in that today. Um, I won't. I'm not for spoilers' sakes. I'm not gonna tell you where this is. Only going to tell you that it is a thing that happens, where it has a fight that you are meant to lose, and The Last of Us, I find the player death animations to be particularly off-putting. So as soon as it triggers, I would normally reload my checkpoint and try again. Um, so in this particular instance, every time I thought the death animation was starting up, I would restart. I did that for an hour and a half. I did that for an hour and a half, and I didn't
Why
realize.
can't I win this?
Well, because it was like I was like, there's something like this. Because I was at the point I was getting to the point where I was like, this is just bad game design. Like this fight is just bad game design. And then I realized that I was supposed to lose, and I felt relieved at that point. Um, you know,
Has the game made you cry yet?
no, that game does stress me out quite a bit, though. Actually, uh, I don't know if I mentioned this the last time we recorded, or maybe I was just in conversation, but I was telling Tom that to me the scariest thing in that can happen in video games is being hunted, and
Oh,
you spend a lot of time in that game being hunted, and it's really stressful. Um, played a little bit more King of Fighters 14 with Tom. That was a really good time. Um, and I also tried out a game today called Rad, a game by Double Fine Studios. Uh,
hmm.
it's
I've heard of them.
Yeah. So the game is basically it's an action RPG, I guess you'd say, and the core conceit of the game is you're this kid who is trying to save his town, and so you have to venture into some radioactive wastes to find a power source for your environmental control doohickeys. And throughout, as you're going through the game and killing enemies, you're exposed to radiation, which causes different mutations at random. And some of them I found to be more useful than others, but it's always fun to see like what mutation am I going to get next. Like one I got made wings sprout out my back so I could like hover for a little bit or like get through larger gaps. Another one made it so like a little guy sprouted out of my back, and he would shoot at people who were behind me. I could also take him off of my back and throw him, and he'd just stay there as a turret. And so
That's cool.
yeah, it's really neat. And like some of them are like passive stuff, like you can get a mutation that makes it so that walking through fire doesn't hurt you. But yeah, it's got a really cool little vibe to it. Lots of really cool music. A lot of really it's like a lot of really good visuals in it. The character models are kind of whatever, but like everything around it, like the backgrounds and the environments are really cool looking too. I haven't finished a run of the game yet, but so far I'm really digging it. That's the first Double Fine game I've played, I think, since I want to say Broken Age. Yeah. Either Broken Age or Brutal Legend was the last one I played. I can't remember. But
Well, Brutal Legend came out well before Broken Age.
yeah, but also it could have been the last one that I played, which I do believe I did play the last time I played Brutal Legend on Steam, I believe. Yeah, but yeah, good time. Good time. I like it so far.
All right, real quick. I want to make a quick timeout. Ryan, it sounds like the audio is coming through like your computer. I keep hearing this weird distortion, and it's really
Hold
really
on.
bothering me in the conversation.
Well, I don't know where it's. Is it me or is it you?
I think it's you
Okay.
because when
It's when I'm
Tommy talks,
talking?
I don't hear it.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on. Let me.
Does it
Well, I
sound
don't know
different to
if
you,
this
Tom?
helps, but I don't hear any kind of distortion.
Okay. How about now?
Yeah, it just sounds like it's getting like the audio's coming through his computer instead of his headset.
It's coming through this microphone here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, let me make
Let's
sure.
just leave this in, okay?
Sure. I'll take a quick second to make sure I'm not recording from two sources at once, and I am not. So I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Let's
All
just
right.
roll the dice, y'all. You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, it is what it is, man.
Are we gonna YOLO?
No.
No, I would not
We don't
say that.
No.
I really hope that line by itself means that you will cut this out and not leave it.
Nope. In fact, I'm going to leave this as is, but I'm going to make a separate clip that's just isolated you saying that.
Dope. All right. Well, if anyone's curious, as to no surprise, I have been playing Animal Crossing. I really like the new update and the swimming features. I can dive around, and some of the stuff runs from you, so you gotta like swim after it. And I sing the Jaws song every single time. I'm just like da na na na, and then you grab it.
Oh, is that the Jaws song?
And yeah. But yeah, no, it's been super fun. I've been doing a lot of renovating stuff on my island, getting like ideas actually down. I've been really cultivating my like catalog of items, and I now have them like on an app on my phone, like matching, and so it's like perfectly cataloged, and I feel really good about that. And then my friend Sean bought me Halo 3, but I have not played it yet. I actually was planning on doing that after the podcast.
You need to get on that. You need to finish the fight, dude.
Ryan bought me The Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
Did he really?
He just hasn't delivered it to me yet.
I'm working on the logistics of that right now. You see, I don't have a car right now.
Just favor it.
Favorite?
Yeah. Or not favorite. What's Postmates? One of the ones that will do like non just store stuff. It'll also like do other deliveries.
Oh, the United States Postal Service.
Those guys.
All right, that is the second
Whether
time.
hail nor sleet or whatever. How's it go?
All right, guys. Yeah, so that was our show. Thanks for listening to us talk about the post office.
Yeah, that was a good 10 minutes.
Yeah. No, actually, so I have been, of course, listening to all the things that are going on in the like online communities, but I've been also seeing some people online talking about the scarcity of Switches, and not in every country, obviously, but in a lot of them, and a lot of people saying that it's an artificial scarcity.
Those people are idiots.
And I'm just like, yeah, like I'm like, this is a motherfucking pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think this is the artificial like scarcity thing? Like they haven't done that in a hot
Here's
minute.
the thing. Right now, currently, they still do it completely, but this is a completely different situation. Right now, it's hard to find a fucking PlayStation 4. You know, like that's not related to Nintendo in any way. You know, it's just consoles in general are in high demand with people staying at home. As somebody who works in the semiconductor industry, I can tell you that these chipsets are in very high demand right now.
Yeah, but I got me thinking on the kind of like history of Nintendo with artificial scarcity, and just kind of want to talk to you guys about that because um I saw a lot of the same things come up when the Switch launched, and then like I know like Forbes and a couple other magazines and like a couple tech magazines talked about like no, it's not artificial scarcity, it is incompetent workflow, or supply workflow as far as that went. Apparently, the logistics of it just did not go very well for them.
Well, with the Switch specifically, I think it's different than the scarcity of things like their software or Amiibo or even other consoles
Yes.
that they've had, because the Switch is based off of a Tegra processor that was already put in a lot of things like tablets and mobile phones. Uh, when there's a demand for that processor elsewhere besides just this specific device, yeah, it's going to be, you know, I mean, there's going to be fewer of them available. That's just the way it is. That said, Switches weren't particularly hard to find at launch. Like day one, sure, but give it a month or two later, it wasn't that difficult to come across a Switch. It's not like when the Wii came out.
No, and
People waited
even
fucking months and months and months for a Wii.
and I haven't really read up or like looked at any articles like pertaining to that. So like you probably have more knowledge than me on this. Like I definitely don't feel like that was artificial like scarcity at all. I feel like that was just a lot of people really wanted that device.
More than expected, right? Especially
Yeah.
considering the sales, like especially at that time, we had the Nintendo 64 sell fewer units than the SNES, and then the GameCube sell fewer units. So Nintendo had no reason to believe that the Wii was going to blow up the way that it did. They had no reason to prepare that much hardware. Uh, you know what I mean? Like, why would you make that much if you don't think you're going to sell that much?
Yeah. And I forgot about Amiibos because you're right, they still do that like all the time with those. And
Yeah.
that is super frustrating. And what I'm trying to think of the I think it was Xenoblade on the Wii that they did that for a long time to where like that was like a $60-$70 game for a hot minute.
Well, they do that with all Nintendo first party games and even some second party games, until they end up doing like, I think on SNES it was called like Player's Choice, and like the past couple of generations it's been Nintendo Selects, right? That's where you
Yeah.
see a price drop on those titles. But it's smart. I mean, I get that people think that it's scummy, and it sort of is, right? Like it kind of is. But like, if they can have Ocarina of Time 3D for $40 at launch and keep it at $40 for 3 fucking years because people are going to pay for it, uh, and then you do a price drop to 20, like why wouldn't you do that? If people are going to pay that higher price point for Nintendo's first party games, why wouldn't they continue to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's like with Disney in the vault, like those
Right.
classics.
Right, exactly.
Um
And you see
and then
MPDs, right? Since the Switch came out, you see MPDs and games like Mario Kart 8 and Smash Brothers and Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild. All these games chart for fucking months and months and months. I mean, they're not GTA 5, right? They're not Minecraft, but they're not far from it.
well they also have like fewer devices that they're on compared to those games as
Sure,
well.
sure. And they don't count digital
Um
sales, right? Nintendo doesn't count any of their digital sales, uh, which I imagine for Switch is quite a few. But
yeah, I mean they have to start counting that now, at least have some sort of record of it. Or they can put it into
I
like
mean,
like
Nintendo
a
has that
data managed
record, but that
form.
information is not provided to NPD.
All right, okay. Yeah, I know because I wrote it down because this also like brought it because I went back to the article because of seeing those comments, seeing the other things linked to it, and I looked him up in his history at Disney. But so Peter Main, who was the vice president for sales and marketing for Disney for a hot minute, he called it inventory management. And I feel like as far as like in the vault stuff, and I feel like that definitely applies to Nintendo as well. I mean, that's what the in the vault Nintendo Selects are. And you're right, it is a smart move in doing brand integrity. But when they first started doing it, they had a much bigger like share of the market
Sure.
as far as like games and consoles went. And even like in Toys R Us and like sales of toys and stuff like that, they had a much bigger share than I think they do now. Maybe not, maybe toys are still like pretty big because I forgot about Amiibo. So I'm not only going to talk about like that as far as the peripherals go.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't play with consoles and even software now that they have like the power that they used to as far as the market goes. And I just don't feel like since like the Switch, like the launch of it, there's been no reason to do fault scarcity for any of their hardware or software.
Well, I mean, there always is a reason to do it for software. Hardware, maybe not, but there is always a reason to do it for software. If you go, Sinead, let's say, I don't know, what's a Nintendo game you like? Pokemon, right? Let's say, I know it's Pokemon Company, but it's Nintendo Public. Let's say a new Pokemon comes out, and Sinead's super fucking excited for it, and she goes to the store on day one, but she forgot to pre-order, and it's not there. So she goes back in a week, and it's not there. So she goes back in a month, and it's not there. So she goes back in 3 months, and it's not there, right? You fucking buy it digitally. And Nintendo sees a bigger cut of you buying it digitally than they do if you bought that physical copy at a store. So false scarcity, when it comes to software, is always a smart business move. Whether it's a good consumer-friendly move or not is debatable, but it's always a smart business move.
Hmm.
In my opinion.
I haven't really heard about any like scarcity in games though since like the launch of it.
I mean, I'll say this. There have been a few times, a handful of times, where I have gone to purchase a physical copy of a game that I did not pre-order and have been unsuccessful, right? Not often. Most recently, Monkey Ball Deluxe. What was that fucking Monkey Ball called? The remake, the real bad one. Anyway, I went to go buy that day one. Nope. They didn't have it, you know? And it's not because Monkey Ball is so popular that it sold out. It's because they didn't expect to sell a lot of them, so they only ordered a couple, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, it does happen. And it happens typically more on the software side of things. When we typically see it with hardware, it's at launch or it's during the holidays. The reason we're seeing it now is just because everyone's at home, you know?
Or if it's their
my
NES
sister,
or
my
SNES
sister just
Classic.
bought a Switch, and she got the Animal Crossing Switch. She paid $600 for a Japanese unit because she couldn't find one here in the States. You know.
Yeah,
yes,
also,
with those classic consoles for sure. That's really weird, right? They could be printing more and more of those, and the software that's running them is basically a Raspberry fucking Pi. Like, there's no shortage of components for those two units, you know.
Guys, I don't think we make this NES Classic. It's just too hard. Man wasn't meant to do this.
And I will say this, you know, when Reggie Fils-Aimé came out after the NES Classic was hard to find, and said we will print more. We didn't realize it would be this popular, so they did print more. And the initial run of the SNES Classic was higher than that of the NES Classic.
True.
But yeah, like that is how Nintendo compares to Disney as far as the whole Disney Vault business goes. In that, like, there's a fuck ton of Mario games and a fuck ton of Zelda games that, you know, like I've got Sinead's Wii U, right? I can turn that on and I can find them to download on there. And there's no reason the majority of them should not run on the Switch, right? But they're not there. That's the whole Disney Vault thing. Eventually they'll put them out and people will go fucking crazy. And those games, those 20-year-old games will chart once again.
And be for like $50, $60.
Well, I don't think they're going to be doing that for some
Yeah.
fucking GameCube game, you know.
Oh, not
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, unless it's like a remaster or something like that, right? But if it's just a straight port, which most of this Wii U stuff is, um, yeah, like it is smart. I don't know.
I mean, I know they did a lot with their NES cartridges.
What's that?
Like the artificial scarcity. So they kept a lot of games inactive and didn't send them to retailers like Toys R Us for sure. And there wasn't a digital market on there.
Well, I think like that's at such a different time, right? And this is speaking as somebody who was not keeping track of Nintendo's business back then, obviously. But like, you got to remember, this is right after the video games crash. Nintendo was dipping its toes into the fucking water, right? We had test markets for the NES before they even released it nationwide because they weren't sure if it would be lucrative enough to do so. You know, they assumed it would be a flop. That's why you saw like I think it was like New York and Albuquerque were like the two test markets for the NES. There might be another one or two I'm forgetting about,
Yeah.
but like you know, yeah, if they were that scared to even release the console, like I'm not surprised they wouldn't print a whole lot of games. I don't know.
Um,
That's just my
and
take on it.
that's like, and I don't know exactly when they adopted this, like sort of marketing direction. I know I've seen like twice or a couple times. One of them was on a one player article on it, talking about how Nintendo blamed flooding the market for the reason the Atari collapsed, and
Absolutely.
that's why they changed gears on it.
Yeah.
But I don't really know like the details or even the general thing about why it flooded the market or necessarily like, how that caused the downfall of it.
Sure. So with the Atari 2600 and subsequent consoles after that, uh, everybody was making games, and they were making very low quality games. Right, games were being turned around in like 2 months, 3 months, sometimes less than that. There were games for fucking everything. Right, people blame ET, but it's not ET's fault. There's a bunch of fucking shitty games, and people got tired of paying a high dollar for these games that fucking sucked. You know. Uh, and eventually the market just crashed. There was an oversaturation. That's why when NES came to the States, and I believe even the Famicom in Japan, uh, you saw things like Nintendo only allowing publishers to publish so many games every year, which is why we had things like Ultra coming out from Konami, right? It's another fake company they made just to publish more games. Uh, but that's when I won't say, and James Sandusky can back me up on this. I will not say that every NES game is fantastic. There are a lot of shitty NES games, right? But a lot of them are shitty due to age and not because they were really shitty back then, if that makes sense. They just didn't hold up very well over the course of several decades. Uh,
I mean,
but
some
like
were probably not great at launch
No,
either.
sure. Some were already bad, right? But the Nintendo seal of approval, as much of a gimmick as it was, actually kind of had some meaning to it, you know? Nintendo was trying to curate what was being put on their platform for that exact reason. I think that's smart. I wish more people would do that today. I wish Nintendo would do that today, right? Like we've talked about it before, NES had like 700, 800 games total. Switch had more than that in its first year.
Yeah. Side note, what do you think is the worst NES game that you've played?
Oy, I don't know.
Same question goes for you, Ryan.
The one that immediately comes to mind is I don't know. I've heard people speak highly of it. I don't know
Well,
why,
in your opinion, worst
but
one that
like
you played in your
it was
opinion.
there was a Popeye game that was literally just Donkey Kong, and it wasn't. I guess it wasn't. I mean, Donkey Kong is good, so I guess by transitive property, I guess that game is also good. But it was just like, it was shitty because it was just like it was literally Donkey Kong with Popeye and Bluto instead of Jumpman and Donkey Kong. So it was just, um, but also, I think that because of like how how infrequently I got new games for my Nintendo, I think that colored my perception of a lot of those games, especially especially the age I was at when I was getting those games. Um,
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't know anybody else's opinion, but mine was the Fantasia game. I just hated it. My cousin would play it, and I'd just leave the room. I just didn't want to play it.
Well, I'll tell you, the Friday the 13th game wasn't very good.
oh yeah, yeah.
But
It's funny though because I watched someone playing that game recently, and I still felt kind of scared because I was like, man, is Jason gonna show up here, or Jason gonna show up here? So I mean, in that way, it was effective. But that game,
Purple Jason.
yeah, but in that way, the game was effective.
Jason?
Yeah, but that that game is well. I never actually put hands on it because I was too scared to.
I will.
But
I
it
will say
seemed
this
bad.
though about the whole scarcity thing on the software side. I remember clearly going to Toys R Us and going to Game World and going to Walmart and always seeing like fully stocked Nintendo licensed and published games. I never saw a shortage of Mario 64 or Mario Kart 64 or Pilot Wings or like any of those games. They were always there. Uh, the generation after that, I can't really speak to. Maybe that's when it happened. I don't know. But
So I started working at GameStop when the DSi came out.
yeah,
So like I know quite a, like definitely not like the first day of like a Pokemon or new Mario game.
yeah,
It might wipe out, and then like sometime in the holidays we also might run out for a couple days, but always pretty stocked on it. It is the like kind of non like Mario, Pokemon, Zelda like titles that we would run out of. So like of course, so a lot of like 3DS games at launch
yeah.
sold out pretty quickly.
I guess so.
It's the stuff that's expected to sell less, right? But like, what's funny about their first party stuff is even the stuff that's expected to sell less, even Super Princess Peach, probably still sold pretty well compared to other titles on the platform.
I
Oh
guess
yeah,
You
and then
know,
like we even resold it for like basically brand new prices.
right?
I guess what I'm wondering is how often people are confusing artificial scarcity with just a manufacturer's inability to keep up with demand.
Well, it's not. I mean, I think artificial scarcity in Nintendo's case is true.
Well, I'm not.
They,
Well,
Just not every time.
I just
not every time, right?
right. Well, like, because I think that a lot of times when I hear people talk about artificial scarcity, it's a blanket statement, like across the board for like everything that they do, and I
Right.
think that just sometimes it is possible. Like, I'm not saying that artificial scarcity isn't a thing, because if I have a way to keep demand for my product high, then I'm probably going to exploit it. But I also think that there are some cases where like it was possible for the manufacturer to underestimate how popular a title was going to be and have a hard time keeping up with it.
Right.
And I think that also, again, because it's weird because even with everything going on, that I've heard that topic come up, um, like in reference to like what Nintendo's doing as far as like specifically where hardware is concerned, and I might be I correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure their shit is manufactured in China,
I have no idea.
which is like
Probably some of it.
yeah. So and like with how bad manufacturing has slowed down in that part of the world, I have to imagine that coupled with everybody having to stay home and entertain themselves, that it would be kind of hard to keep up with demand if you can't make these things fast enough. That being said, I don't really know a whole lot about manufacturing, and I also don't know the intricate details of uh, Nintendo's manufacturing situation.
Right. And like I said
It also
earlier,
just
the thing I think is funny about this situation, what we're going through now, is that it's not just Nintendo. It's video games,
Yeah. I think people don't
uh
realize how many other things like have similar components to video game consoles.
Right, but like I said, like Wario 64 is tweeting out every time. He tweeted out today, "Hey, there's a couple of Switches available on Amazon. Go get them."
Yeah.
You know, he does the same thing for PlayStation. It's not just a Switch that's hard to find; it's all consoles, really.
Yeah.
So I've heard the argument being that this has been like, a
Fucking
long term
3DS
plan.
prices are going up.
Yeah, a long term plan of theirs. Like they did like artificial scarcity when they launched. They did it during like another time, and they're doing it now during the pandemic. And they're going to keep pushing them out in a steady basis, which is which is just dumb. But also just like doesn't make sense because then you would think that they would do stuff as well, other things as far as the actual hardware itself to make it harder. Like they didn't region lock the Nintendo Switch.
Right.
So like if like scarcity was the name of the game for the hardware for this console, you think that would be like one of the things they implement.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, Nintendo has done region locking on a lot of their previous consoles.
Yes.
But what's funny is like with Sony, it's always been on a hardware level, and by hardware I mean like the internals of the console itself. Whereas with Nintendo, it was always still on the hardware level, but like something you could easily get around. You know,
Yeah.
you could order Japanese SNES carts and very easily play them on a North American SNES. You know,
I had one of those.
yeah.
Um. So yeah, I'm just gonna like want to talk about that, but I also was like thinking about it as well. So say like 10 years, we have all digital console, we get rid of
Bless
physical.
you.
Bless you. Like would the
Dankeschön.
besides besides like the timing of like when you can buy them, like how would the digital marketplace really affect artificial scarcity if that's your plan? And because it kind of is one of those things like once you download it, like you
Right.
do have it.
There's no
Granted,
need.
if you play online or have any of those features in there, that does make it different. But I do feel like that artificial scarcity is a little bit different when or is a lot different when you're in the digital space. And the one thing I can
Right.
think of is if it's like, so like say with the Apple Arcade, I feel like that kind of video game subscription service does lend itself well to like if you want to create and curate some sort of artificial scarcity or like kind of elite class for the games,
Right.
like for the well curated library.
I think with digital products, you certainly could do it, but I think that the consumer would frown upon it even more so than they do with physical goods. People do seem to forget if we're not talking about a streaming service, if we're talking about a digital purchase of a product, there are a finite number of keys. People seem to forget that. GameStop has been for the past few years trying to find a way to sell used game keys. Uh, you know, so they could go that route. They probably wouldn't for obvious reasons. But like at that point, there's zero need to do that. You're not paying to manufacture the product. You're not paying to ship the product, to package it. You're not paying for a store to put it on their fucking shelf. You know, if it's all digital, there's no reason for that false scarcity. For games, right? For software,
Yeah.
there's no reason for it. For other things, Amiibo or World of Nintendo toys or whatever else, sure, maybe, I guess.
I wish I
That's
had
what always
Amiibo
confuses
money.
me, though, right? Like on the software side, I can see how it benefits them to do that. When it comes to Amiibo, I don't understand how that benefits them at all.
Because then people just like sell them online for like
Yeah.
triple the money, and like
Right.
I'm not gonna spend $400 on a Raymond like thing or like any Animal Crossing
Yes, you
character. No, I would not.
Did you say a Raymond?
Shanae, you're the
Yeah.
one that has like a fucking wand and lightsaber that were probably pretty pricey.
Yeah,
all right?
that is
Yeah, but
true. And they don't even do nothing.
Actually,
you can take that back real fast. They are great. We can cosplay with them. They are a physical item. They make fun noises. We can have like lightsaber fights and over like petty stuff. And like my amiibo can do one thing in Animal Crossing, and I'm just like, no. I also my lightsabers do not cost like $600. They cost like 200 each, 250.
There's amiibo costing
For all
$600.
12 of them. You know, what I do think is interesting, and I'll be like looking at closely to see how it actually affects things, because I don't honestly think it will affect things very much, is that there's been a lot of talk the past 2 weeks of a increase in the price of AAA software for this generation.
Yeah, that I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't have a game this week, but that's what I wanted to talk about. Is I saw such a hateful, angry thread about the new NBA game being like $70.
Yeah.
Bert, like I was coming out of the shower or the bathroom, and
Bert.
Berto was like, Berto was like, did you hear about the price thing? Like it was all like scandalous.
Yeah.
It's 10 extra. I mean, like, granted, I get with the microtransactions and the raising the price. A little mad about that, but we have
Shouldn't
been on
be.
the show. We've talked about the show for a long time. How games are more expensive to make, but they have not raised up in price. And it's crazy to see how angry. Like I've seen people like bitch about it, but I never saw like a just like super hateful thread that had like thousands of like people approving it. It's nuts. So it's $10 extra.
So here's the thing, right?
$10.
That $10 does not fix the problem that we've had in the industry for the past 15 years. It just helps to lighten the blow. You know what I mean? They will still need to be doing season passes and paid premium content. Like, they will still have to do that. Maybe they can
And
do a little bit less,
microtransactions.
right? Maybe they can do a little less, but they probably won't, because people have shown time and time again, as much as they bitch about it, they're still going to pay for the game, and they're still going to pay for those microtransactions.
A product is worth however much you'll pay for it.
Right. It was with the 2K series a couple years ago, where they made you pay to cut your hair, and then pay if you wanted to change your hair back to what you had before. This is the same series, right? So I think like that is probably why. It's not the only reason why. You got people mad regardless of what series it is. But I think that because of the predatory nature of 2K in its sports titles in the past, people are going to jump all over them for this, of course.
Well, it's also the fact is that it is such a similar game to the year before. It's an annualized game.
It's a roster update, right?
The actual intellectual property is not getting a giant overhaul each year with any of their assets. They have to drop everything and start all over.
Well, it does seem that this, from the little that we know about this version of 2K, it does not seem like it's just a port and a roster update of the current last gen version. It seems like it is a significant jump forward, as much as that can be for a 2K sports game.
I'm saying like as far as like looking at previous games, like further is the perception of it.
Yeah.
So I guess that adds to people feeling so angry about it. But man, some people are real salty.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, a lot of those people that are commenting on all this stuff, right? $60 has been the cost of a game their entire life. For a lot of these people.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
it's just weird.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I
watched them go from. I mean, we've been alive long enough to see them go from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60. Like, it just happens, and I've just accepted that's the thing that happens. They've stayed at $60 for a lot longer than I expected them to. I'll give them that. I can't I've thought about it a million different ways, and I guess I can't find it in me anywhere to be bothered by it.
Oh, bother.
Well, because I think about it too. There are two things that come to mind when I think about it. There's one. These are video games, not insulin. So, a $10 increase in the price of your video game it's not. it's not, in my opinion, worth getting mad over.
You
Um,
wouldn't write an essay?
no, I wouldn't. And like, and again, like, I'll decide whether or not a video game is worth $70 to me, or whether or not I'll pay for it. That also, I think that people like. I don't think that you need to. And this again, I can only speak for myself, but like, I don't have the need to be there for the day one conversation for every video game. And I don't know. I just think that video games costing a little bit more money isn't the worst thing that could happen. I just don't see it as that, like, I don't really don't see that as that big of a deal.
So my perspective on the whole thing is like video games are such a weird thing in that in the early 90s to mid 90s, we saw games that had a huge range of price. Uh, you look in the Toys R Us catalog and you'd see an N64 game for $80, and you'd see on the same page one for $40 and one for $60, right? And then it was with the generation after that that the industry as a whole seemed to settle on $50 as the price point.
Yeah.
And it was the generation after that that the industry as a whole seemed to settle on $60, right?
Yeah.
So we went from pricing games based on what we thought the games were worth to a flat price across the industry for the majority of our games. And it's kind of weird to me because games are one of the only things that are priced in that way. You don't go to buy a new television or a new car and expect that every TV is going to be the same price,
Yeah.
or that every vehicle is going to be the same price.
Yeah.
You don't go to buy a book, right? If we're looking at it from an art standpoint, you don't go to buy a book and expect that every single book is going to be the same price.
Right.
We price things based on what we think that they are worth. But for some
I think
reason,
a lot of
go ahead, Janae.
I think a lot of books like even a lot of books are like between like what $20 and $40, unless they're like on the giant top seller list or they're like a massive collection or they're really nice print or something.
But wouldn't you say, even relatively speaking, $20 to $40 is a huge difference compared to $60 to $70,
Yeah, 100%.
right?
And I was
It's
because I was thinking about because I was thinking about whenever I used to buy movies, because didn't DVDs normally come out around the same price though? Like whenever like it would come out on DVD like before Netflix started streaming.
there was a whether it was CDs or DVDs or even Blu-rays now. If you go to Best Buy and look at Blu-rays, you're going to see a wide variety of prices. Now, those prices may only fluctuate a few dollars, right? But they're not one standard price. You know, it's like with movies at the box office, depending on the location, we've decided on a price that is worth. But as far as ownership of that, it fluctuates. Even digitally, right? You buy a movie on Amazon Prime or on iTunes. There's price differences all over the place.
Yeah,
Same thing
even
with
renting
music.
them.
Same thing with books. For whatever reason, the games industry is the one industry that has said, we're going to have this price. Obviously not for everything, right? Not for your small little indie games. But for the most part, this is what games cost. And I think it's kind of dumb that we do that.
Yeah.
You know? I'm not saying every game should go to 70. I'm saying that games should be priced accordingly to what the publisher and what the developer believe that that game is worth.
Yeah, but and again, I think that and this is just as you know, as an observation that I've made is that um, it is quite often that I will see that, like for example, in the instance of God, what's that game? The Order 1886.
Yes.
That game launched at $60, and it's what is that? What is that? A 5-hour game, Tom?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, and regardless of like what kind of production values went into that game, regardless of how much work went into that crafting that 5 hours, a lot of the discourse about how that game was priced was based almost completely on the fact that that game was 5 hours long, as opposed to 10 or 20 hours long.
Okay.
And so like, it's one of those things where like like I'll pay just as much to watch a Star War as I will to watch an Equalizer, and those movies have different run times, or and they're different genres or what have you, but they're priced like they're priced without those things into consideration. But the weird thing about it is that when we look at things like that, we don't say like, I can't believe I paid just as much to see the Star War as I paid to watch the Equalizer.
I
And
heard some people complain about like paying the same price for the movies being like different quality, but I was talking to somebody like a long time ago. We are talking about it, like even if the game is only 5 hours and it's the $60 and it's well crafted, like I don't know, like you're still paying less dollar per hour for hours of entertainment than if you go to the movies.
yeah, but like,
Sure.
what is $60 worth to you though, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is that like for like I just if like I can play the game and feel like, hey, I got $60 out of that. I'll pay $60 for that. But like at the same time, like people will I've just heard like, that game was 5 hours long, so I feel like it should have only been like $30 or $20. And it's just like, it's such a weird, it's not, I don't know, it's a strange metric I feel like to use, because I feel like that I feel like the value is more than how long the game is. It's like, what's in it, like what is it made
Yeah.
of, because it could have just been that game could have been 30 hours long, but it could have been 30 hours of garbage.
Right, and that's the other thing is I don't think like it shouldn't be on the consumers to decide what price we want to pay.
Yeah.
It should be on the publishers and developers to decide what they think the game is worth. Again, right? Uh, you go, Edward Gorey makes a piece of art and decides to sell it for $5,000 or $5. It should be up to them what they think their product is worth. And in certain cases, like the Order 1886, the public will decide what they want to and do not want to spend their money on.
Right. You decide if you agree with me on the worth or not.
Right. It's
You can
weird
prevent
because
forest fires.
it really is one of the only not the only products, but
Sure.
one of very few products in which we've just assigned a universal price tag to.
Like regardless of content or
Right.
quality or
I'm trying to.
genre or whatever.
It's like a board game, right? Trivial Pursuit might cost you a couple dollars more than Monopoly, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, whatever. That's a Garfield.
No, definitely. I mean, since we're talking about it anyways, like at GameStop, quite often the complaint I heard was like, oh, I just paid for this game. I spent $60 and I'm already here the next day because I beat the first game
Yeah.
in like 10 hours. I'm like, okay, so like, that's on you, bud.
And you're getting more money back if you're bringing it back the very next day.
Yeah.
Well, people are like, I want a full refund. I'm like, I only had it for a day. And I'm like, okay, like, that's not how the market works.
I mean, and that's the thing too, is like you kind of roll the dice, right? Like, that you haven't played the game or not. Yeah, you knew that you haven't played the game yet. You know that you don't know everything that's in that game. So you decide, you've made the conscious decision to pay that price for a product that you don't know everything about.
Right, and now compared to 15, 20 years ago, we have the resources to be informed about these purchases, Maybe not 100%, but at least pretty informed about them.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like, there's like, you can have a dining experience where you pay $200 and get less food than like if you went to another establishment and spent $20.
Right.
And I hear that complaint. It's like, oh, why would you pay like $100 to get like this amount of food? Because you're not just buying for the food. You're buying for like hopefully you're paying for the atmosphere, the culinary expertise, and it is cooked to perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like it with games. Like, yes, it like just because you can beat it within a day doesn't mean you should get your money back if it's a good game. Like
Right.
if the product is not defective in what it is intended to be, you don't like people don't get the understand like the thing for a credit or a refund. Like a refund is because a service wasn't rendered.
Yeah.
The service was rendered. You
Yeah.
got the game.
Yeah. It's not our fault that you didn't like it, you know. Well,
Or that you're bored the next day. Like
and
that's on you.
and
Plan your weekend.
and I think that like also like it depends on like what are you looking to get out of it, right? Because like I could play something and feel like I was going into it hoping for I don't know this kind of experience or for it to invoke this kind of feeling, and I got that, and that speaks nothing to like how the game works or how long the game is or anything like that. It's just I went into it hoping to getting this specific thing out of that, and I decided that getting that thing is worth this amount of money to me.
Yeah.
But that's just
Yeah,
that's just me, you know.
I go into every game hoping to wring every single ounce of fun or pleasure out of the game until it turns into a job, and then I stop it.
Well, it's funny you say that, though. It's funny you say that, though, Sinead, because I know, and you guys know, people who are very much like that. I bought this game,
Oh,
so I'm going to 100% it, even though I don't like it. You know, you're then
oh,
wasting your time as well as your. Uh,
no,
but
no, I don't. I mean, like I stopped Red Dead Redemption 2 after 10 hours.
right,
There's another game that I played recently that I was like, oh, well, like, yeah, I didn't get into that one.
yeah,
I can't remember what it was, but yeah, like, I mean, but if a game can get me on a hook, I'm like, oh, I enjoyed it once, I'm gonna enjoy it the rest of the time.
Yeah. Well, and I get it. Like paying money for a game that you end up not being into or wasn't as long as you hoped it would be. Like I get that that's disappointing. But again, like you made a decision to go into it with that being a possibility. And like Tom said, like you can look up a game on the internet and find out how long that game is. Uh, and depending on how much you want to know about it, you can find out pretty much everything that there is to do in that game before you buy it. If you decide that you're not going to do that, then that's the decision that's the decision that you've made, and that's not.
But I want to go into the game blind.
And it's not.
but you can still do that and know how long that game is.
Yeah.
Nah, it's gonna spoil the surprise for me.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know.
I can tell the direction of the story by
And here's the
the
thing, right?
average runtime.
There are games that I've wanted to go in knowing as little information about as possible, right? But I made that decision. And I made the adult decision to spend my money on that product,
Yeah.
So it is then no one's fault but my own if I do not like that product.
It's weird. It's weird how people like look at something and like gauge like the value of it. Like they play a game and then they decide that it's like they decide whether or not that game was worth $60 based on and I'm really never sure.
I think based on what their $60 has provided them before.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, because it is a thing where like before when you see like the $80 game and the $40 game, you're like, well, I bought that $40 game before and it was great. This is $80. It has to be better.
It's gotta be twice as good.
Yeah, it has to be. That's how it works.
You do the math.
So, like, but if everything is the same price, a game can be an $80 game at a $6 price.
If they're
and
all
people
the
are like,
same
fuck
price,
yeah,
they're all the same quality.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
And like it's a tricky thing though, right? Because like and I think for a lot of people, how much you pay for something can definitely color your perception of how much you like that thing.
I mean, there's like a famous thing with like wine drinkers where it's like they put the labels on the wrong bottles so people thought they were drinking expensive wine.
Yeah.
They're like, it's so good.
Yeah, well, yeah, it goes both ways, right? You see people that are looking for any reason to tear a game apart.
Yeah.
And you see people who are pouring through reviews to find somebody who agrees with them and validates their purchase, right? Like it goes both ways. And both are dumb.
Yeah. It's funny because like it's funny you should say that because I was online the other day, and someone made a post about The Last of Us 2, and it was
Shocking.
it was about specifically it was about
Dun
Ludo.
dun.
It was about like ludonarrative dissonance or whatever,
Yeah.
and
They've been complaining about that since the first game.
and like I would just and like the post was very much centered like after you finish the game, you should definitely go read this because it'll let you know that what you're doing in the game doesn't agree with what the writing is and everything like that. And like I was just like, well, I don't know. I feel like I'm having
You
a
don't know
good.
what I do in my game.
Well,
You don't know me.
I'm just like, well, I'm having a good time with it. So
It's the same. It's the same as when like Sinead's telling us why we should hate Jim and Pam on The Office. You know,
sure.
when obviously
I don't
that
say they all
wasn't
should hate
when
us.
obviously that wasn't creators' intent. People find reasons for you to think that reason why
Well,
you
like
should think
my whole
that. You
thing
know.
is that like I'm enjoying this thing, and so that's like I'm enjoying this thing. So it's like seeking out that article almost sounds like me going out of my way to stop enjoying it,
Right.
and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Right.
Well, some people get off of being contrarians. They're like, oh, I'm an intellectual because I don't like the things that other people like. Go fuck
I mean, I
yourself.
feel that
Like,
way a lot of the time. Like, I won't lie. I get up my own ass about that stuff, right? I'll go on and on as to why Stranger Things is bad. But like, you know, it's
but do you dislike it because like your gut instinct is like, oh, like these people like it, so I'm not gonna like it. Like, and you just
no.
not even
I
give it a
dislike
chance.
it because I think that there is no character development in the show's main
I
characters.
didn't ask for your reasonings.
But
I didn't go on about the Jim and Pam thing. So I'm gonna stop you there.
yeah,
But I'm just saying there's people who just like are contrarian because their gut instinct is like, oh, like either it's really popular, so
yeah.
they are special because they don't like it,
That's people
It's
who
or
Fortnite.
that's
It's
people.
or
Fortnite, right?
Yeah,
Everyone says Fortnite's garbage, even though everybody buys Fortnite and loves Fortnite.
yeah.
Like,
I mean
it's
I can get into it. Like it I mean it is goofy. It's just like I just like PUBG better. Not anyways.
yeah,
That's just
So but
people
like
who like think disagreeing with people is a personality.
right.
and it's
It's not.
say or people see like a group of people they don't like or they don't agree with like
Yeah,
the game, so therefore the game must be bad. But it's bullshit because is not everything is like about your group or tribe.
yeah.
You can just like it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just it's just like it's funny because I read I was going through my timeline and there was a post that said like in your opinion what is the worst video game that you've ever played
Okay.
and like of course and I saw The Last of Us 2 on there and like I get like if it wasn't your thing but like I was like you've never played a game worse than that like you've
Here's
never
the thing, right?
He's only
Like,
played 2 games.
and
Breath of
that's
the Wild and
that's possible. It's very possible, right? But like, to your point, dude, like, you know, the games that I complain about the most, that I've complained about on this show many times, right? You know them, Bound by Flame, Borderlands, like whatever it might be. I can say without a doubt there are worse games than those, you know. But
well,
But you play.
to be fair, the question wasn't posed in a way that was like what game did you feel was actually like qualitatively the worst game you've ever played. It was
yeah,
open to interpretation, so it could have easily been what is the game you enjoyed the least. Fine,
right.
but I just feel like
That's what they asked though.
it just
They asked what was the worst, not
just
was the least likable.
but I think that's that's interchangeable to a lot of people, especially to people who
Don't know English? Yeah.
well
Whoa, whoa, shit.
that's a lot
Pulling
of
out the
people
big
in the
guns.
world. Shitty. There's a lot of people in the world who don't know English, so pump the brakes.
Well,
Uh,
I'm sorry. Was there a lot of like international discourse in this like Facebook question?
it was a multilingual thread actually. But no, and it's just like and don't get me wrong, I fully acknowledge the possibility that is the worst game that they have ever played. I acknowledge that is possible because it certainly could be. But then it's like, how many games have you played then? If that is the worst game that you've ever played, but I don't know. I don't. And so that is very much a person who who looks at a game like The Last of Us and says that game is not worth $60. Uh, and I have to respect that
And it's
because
not
What's
for everybody,
what's
yeah,
you
the
know?
opposite of two chef's kisses?
What?
the opposite of two chef's kisses is two customers taking a dump.
It's not though. Like, like Ryan, you know my feelings on Jackson Pollock, right?
Yeah,
But like,
that guy was a
there are
bullshit
people,
artist.
there are people who think that his works are worth fucking thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
So it's okay to have an opinion,
sure.
but
And it's okay that opinion's wrong. It
yeah,
happens.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just and again, I don't think that any game. I don't consider any game to be objectively like enjoyable. I just I just can't believe you haven't played a worse game than that. But hey, maybe you haven't played a lot of video games. I don't know. But it just again brings to mind like what are people willing to spend their money on? What is $60 to them? And then what will $70 be to them?
and also with the
Persona
$70
6.
conversation, right? Like, the only one we know for sure is 2K. People are making the assumption that this is where we're heading. We do know other companies are currently discussing it, but nothing's been confirmed yet.
Someone's gonna do it.
Well, somebody already has.
No, I mean
but,
someone's
you
gonna
know.
someone's gonna
Allegedly.
someone's gonna be like from this point forward, all of our games are $70.
Sure, but like for people to already be upset about something that has not happened yet is kind of silly to me.
They just play last year's game. Like you still got the dribbling, you still got the dunking, you still got the shooting.
You don't got that sweat, man. You saw that PS5 footage.
That is true. That is true.
Need that sweat.
I don't know.
That's really what's been missing.
I buy very few video games at launch these days. So I guess maybe that's where I'm coming from on it. I don't know, but
me and Berta were talking the other day about which next gen consoles we're gonna get, and so far, no plans of buying the new Xbox. The PS5, we were thinking about waiting about 6 months after the launch of it to see what the early adopter problems are,
sure.
and then kind of go from there.
I just feel like
I'll be buying
$10.
that bitch day one.
I just feel like $10
Huh?
is not that big of a gap though. Like
For some people, it is.
yeah.
It's a baby gap.
For some people, that's a lot of money. And we talk about like people in other regions, like our friend Corey, right? Like it's going to be a bigger jump than $10.
You see Bubba? You see him?
Yeah, I see him.
Hey Bubba. Okay, it was a bit presumptuous of me to say that $10 isn't a lot. I should say that $10 isn't a lot to me, but there are people, of course, who have like very specific budgets for that sort of thing. And if you've allotted $60 for your month for video games, and the video games are $70, then that's gonna throw your whole thing out of whack. And I get that.
Yeah.
And like you said, like video games are priced differently depending on where you're buying them. So, that's a whole thing too. But I don't know. I just bought a video game for $8 today, so that felt pretty good. But we'll see. We shall see.
Yeah. Well, got any closing thoughts, Thomas?
No, not really. Like, I just wish people would calm down a little bit. Like wait to see what's going to happen first.
Yeah. It's so weird how people preemptively react to things.
Yeah.
I am prepared to be upset.
Yeah.
I mean, we know there are like 4 or 5 companies currently considering it, right?
Yeah.
That we know of, which means
Allegedly.
there are probably more than that.
Right.
But we don't know for
Allegedly.
sure yet.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure yet.
Yeah, I don't want to get upset about something before it actually happens.
And even if it does happen, realize that these things cost more than they ever have.
Video
To
games,
produce.
they cost so much
You don't
money.
have to buy it. like you just don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
Like
That's
you
true.
don't have to do those things. Like these are all optional.
Yeah.
Like it's I don't know, like there's so many hobbies out there where there's like very small, minute things that are ridiculously expensive, and the fact is that this is just going up on a game that obviously does take money and time to make and has a decent staff behind it. Like I don't know, like it just like or decent size at least. It's not like one man doing it all, like a Frogger game. It
Yeah.
is like an
Frogger
act
had
like
multiple people, but yeah.
I'm just
well
imagining
Frogger like game. I'm talking about like making a Frogger game
I know,
today.
I
Like
know.
you already
I'm just
whatever.
fucking with you, dude.
Go fuck yourself.
But
Anyways,
like,
but yeah, like I mean, the fact is, like it's just I think that people are focused on the fact is that they find these things scummy and forget that like you just can choose not to buy it,
I'm just
and that might change their
I'm
mind.
just
That might
picturing
change their mind. They might drop the price.
I'm just picturing some video game figurehead being on stage like, that's too much. Look, you don't have to buy it. And like that's his whole presentation.
but you know what? It's funny. Like, it's a funny notion, right? But like, the games industry, at least for the past decade or so, has been all about like for the players, and video games are for everybody, and all that, right? And
Everybody
like,
but the poor.
video games, so much unlike most other art mediums, is like it's an interactive thing, right?
Yeah.
There's a participation, there's a call and response.
Yeah.
But like, so it's a hobby, right? Like listening to music isn't really a hobby, it's consuming an art form. Watching movies or reading a book isn't really a hobby, it's consuming an art form. You're not, I mean, to an extent, sure. If you're an enthusiast, sure, maybe, kind of. Not the same as something that you actually interact with, right? And to that point, there are plenty of hobbies that I would love to have that I can't afford to have. You
Like
know what I
playing Magic
mean?
the Gathering.
Sure, sure. I mean, there are
I would
very
disagree
expensive
completely about
hobbies
the.
that exist, right? And in that, with that argument, like, if $10 is too much for you, then maybe you can't afford this hobby. You know?
I don't necessarily think that necessarily has to be the case. I think that if you're in a stage of your life, hopefully it's a transitionary stage where the $10 is a lot. There's plenty of free games. There's plenty of other options out there. Like with books and movies, same thing. There's free options out there. There's libraries. There's now libraries that do games. Like you just like if that is too much on your plate, I don't think that you should necessarily change your hobby. But the fact is, like, you just have to live with the fact that you're not gonna get something day one, and like you're just not gonna spend $70. Just choose not to do
Okay,
it.
but like, Shanae, okay, look, for instance, a few years ago, I took my little trip to Colorado and I went dog sledding for the time, right? And I fucking loved it. And if I could turn dog sledding into a hobby, I would. But I can't afford to do that. Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I'm saying? It's not realistic that everybody gets to do everything.
Sure.
It's sad, sure. But realistically, hey, sorry.
I guess I just like.
I would love to see Tommy as a dog sledder. Like I want that to be a profession.
I mean, no, like going 15 years without a price increase on these things is kind of, like you had to see it coming at some point.
Yep.
And like especially like video games cost so much money to make. They take so many resources and they take so long to make.
More now than ever before.
Yeah,
right?
so like you have to expect that at some point the people who are making these video games want to see a return on their investment faster than before. But maybe that's just
or
me.
at all, right?
Yeah, maybe
think about dude. Think about BioShock Infinite, right? Think whatever you want about the game, but like a AAA game with a AAA budget that sold extremely well, was critically praised, and was not profitable.
Yeah.
Was not profitable because of the cost of development.
Yeah.
And
so I don't think it's unreasonable for the MSRP to reflect that.
Right.
That the like what goes into the game, you know. Like, but I don't know. Different people are going to feel differently about it, and I think that it's a knee-jerk reaction because, again, if things have been a certain way for 15 years, then of course, you know, people there are going to be people who like if they get wind of things being different after 15 years, they're going to flip their shit. But I mean, at this again, it's video games are a luxury. They're not a life-saving medication that I need. So if I can't afford to play video games, then I guess I just can't afford to play video games, and that has to be it. But as of right now, I feel like I can afford to play video games, so I'm not sweating it. So.
Good. But yeah, no. So going a little longer than I was expecting, but yeah, if you want to let us know what a game that you have recently bought that you don't think that for $60 you don't think is a $60 game, whether it's like you think it's worth like more or less, you should let us know either in our Discord or
Oh,
on Instagram.
only accepting the answer bound by flame, please. That is it.
Wait, or more. Like you say that you think Doom's like a $300 game.
It
like,
is. It is.
It's
so yeah, Discord, on the YouTubes, on most podcast apps, and then just real popping on the Instagram. Thanks to Tommy, and bye guys.
Bye guys.